Howdy y'all, welcome to the Dirt Road Grocery Store. Today we're doing a video on how to put a scope on your rifle. So right here we have a scope from Simmons. I got it on Christmas. Obviously I didn't know that was just a few weeks ago. And we have a Ruger rifle and we're going to put the scope on that.
We got a Simmons 22 scope they set up for a rimfire. It came with some rings. The reason we selected this one is because it's cheap and Rex breaks everything. Well, you do. Alright. Now, already the first thing you do when you're going to work on a rifle is make sure it's unloaded. You can see this is a bolt action. It has no bolt. It has no magazine. It has no chamber. No cartridge in the chamber. You can feel that with your finger. And also, look to make sure it's unloaded.
If you have the bolt in your hand, that means it's not loaded.
Yeah, well, it can't fire. It could be loaded, but it can't fire. It's got no firing pin in it. But you can look in there and feel with your finger. And if you check with your eye and with touch, then you know it's not loaded.
Yeah.
So go ahead and look and touch it.
I feel no bullet.
Okay. Now, we've got everything prepared to mount the bases. To mount a scope, you need rings and bases to attach the rings to the rifle. Unless with a rimfire there's a groove, you can use a rimfire groove. There are hardly any rimfire groove mounts that will hold solid. But if you put a Weaver base on there, that matches up with. These aren't good rings, but they're good enough to hold on to 22. And to be honest, Rex is going to slam this up against the tree. He's going to drop it. It's going to get knocked off zero, so it's not really going to be an issue. We'll just set it back right. So we've got the gun prepared. We were taking out the filler screws to make the video shorter, but they got stuck. One of them was stuck. So what did we do then, Rex?
We add some Kroil.
Kroil is penetrating lubricant, and that's going to get down in those threads and make it easier to get that screw loose. And we've got a screwdriver. Normally you want to use a good hollow ground screwdriver that will fit the screw perfectly. We don't have one. We tried. Now Rex, I have a question for you. How many days old were you when you learned that those hexagonal handles on screwdrivers were supposed to fit wrenches? Help you turn them better.
I didn't even learn that.
You didn't learn that?
I didn't even hear you talk about it, so I didn't know it.
Well, they're supposed to. But these don't. I just told the story.
Maybe the other ones on the other side might work.
They don't match. Who made the screwdriver? It says USA. It's a Craftsman. Craftsman generally fit. Oh well. I reckon we're just going to muscle it out of there. Oh, we put the Kroil on the thing. We got the other ones loose. This one we could not get loose. And our screwdriver doesn't fit very well.
Because it requires very small screwdriver.
Did I turn it or did I booger it? It just snapped loose. Alright, I'm going to get this one for you. Alright, go to it. You ever find Cheakrest?
Cheakrest? Nah. Mine got thrown away when Sissy was painting.
This Mara Ruger American is the compact, and it comes with just two pieces for the buttstock for use with iron sights or with scopes. Now, we don't know where the one for the scope is. It was stored in the box under Rex's bed for some time. Okay, we got that. Good. So we're gonna wipe that Kroil around up there. Now, next step you want to do, Rex, is to get your thread locker on. two ways to do thread locker. One, you can put it on and let it dry. Are we patient enough to sit around and wait for this to dry?
No.
We are not. The other way to use thread locker is to put it at the top of the screw. And then it'll get between the base and the screw. We're saving our screws in case you ever want to revert back, or maybe you decide scope's really lame and you want to put a peep sight on and you want to fill in, but still have your old screws.
Yeah.
So we'll have those if that ever happens. So we are two. Why am I doing all the work? Take that out. Now the Ruger American uses the same base front and rear. These things are cheap. Another reason to use a weaver base. I like to use Picatinny rails because you can use Picatinny rails, and the rings on all your scopes, if you have Picatinny bases, will all be set to where they can go on any Picatinny base if you use a full Picatinny rail. And you can move your scopes around, which is really handy when you're hand loading and testing a load, because you can have a high magnification scope to put on while testing loads for a rifle. Makes it a lot easier. And then you can put your hunting scope on, and it'll just go right on there. And you can switch back and forth if you decide to do something else. But with the 22, you need to check different loads. All right. So you just sit them on there. They just sit up there, and then you screw them down, and then we'll put some thread locker on. Don't screw them down tight. Yeah. Well, that's the wrong size. We may have the correct size screwdriver for this. I hope so. I can't see very well, can I? Yep. Okay, so that one fits. It's not too sloppy in there. It fits. It's not real sloppy. Nice hollow ground. You're much less likely to burr your screw heads with that, or twist anything off. There you go. Just get them in there, not too tight, and we'll tighten them with tools. Yep, that sort of thing happens a lot. That's why people will pay somebody to do this. It's a simple thing. It's not difficult to do. You don't have to have special tools, but it can be a nuisance. It's hard to keep track of all that stuff. Y'all can tell my gun device is full of junk and dirty. You have all little fiddly pieces when you're working on the gun. And this stuff lives out in the shop. What do you want to do about that?
Yeah, it's raining. So, always make a video on a rainy day. That's something to do.
I'll give you something to do. You're just going to snug those down, and then we will tighten them to the correct torque with a torque wrench. These are number 6 screws. That is about plus minus 19 foot-pounds. Not foot-pounds. It has to be inch-pounds. I'm quoting stuff off of a card. I can just read the card.
Whatever you're talking about, I don't understand.
Inch-pounds. You wouldn't do foot-pounds. Foot-pounds would snap it right off. Inch-pounds. That's not very much. Now, I said that you don't need specialty tools, and you don't. My lovely wife bought that for me, and I appreciate it because it makes the whole thing simpler. However, especially when you're swapping stuff around, it just makes it so much easier when you're repeatedly using the screws and stuff to put them to a certain inch pound without going too far, because an over-tight screw can be as weak as an under-tight screw. All right, so you got them in there. Good. We'll drop that. Now, this is set to about 18 inch-pounds. Why do I keep saying pounds?
I'm so used to it.
Inches and feet and pounds. It's inch-pounds. All right, anyway. What you're going to do is you're going to tighten it down back and forth till it get good and snug, and then you're going to tighten it till it snaps. It'll go click, and then you know it's tight enough. If you don't have that, well, it's kind of tough to get it right with these flathead screws. Now, Allen screws or Torx head A lot of times you'll have an L-shaped Allen key, something like this. And I have actually checked this versus this, and it's very close. So once the size of the Allen key starts flexing when you're turning, it's pretty close to the actual. It didn't click though.
It's pretty hard.
It's pretty hard. You know, this was actually something you're supposed to sort of break because it has a kind of. See, I broke it. This ought to be your favorite thing, breaking stuff.
I'm not going to break whatever is yours on my scope.
Oh, I'll be very surprised if that scope's about you. We'll get you a quality one after you grow up enough not to break everything. So it's snapping over at the correct torque. And it's pretty tight.
Okay.
Alright, so now those down. Now we didn't have the patience to put the thread locker on. Excuse me. We didn't have the patience to put the thread locker on. So the other way you can do it, instead of applying it to the side of the screw on the threads and letting it dry, is you just put a dot of it up here, and then it'll dry down in there and hold the screw head in place. So all you do, shake it up real, shake it now. Shake it. Now having sugar, you're going to put a drop of it on the top of each screw head on your bases. I gotta go get a cough drop. Don't break nothing while I'm gone. Alright. Whew. Yeah, I'd say you got enough on there. Well, you didn't get enough on that one.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Just take that. That's good. That's more than you need. In fact, we're going to dab a little bit of that off of there. We're going to dab a little bit of that off of there because this stuff isn't even necessary.
No,
A clean thread tightening the torque with decent quality components is going to hold. It's not really an issue. I mean, if you got to put something on there, put something on there to make sure you can get it back apart again, like anti-seize or just a light oil. Okay, so we got it on there. Yeah. Now we got to get the scope on there. Now these, thank goodness, are hex heads, Allen wrenches, because flathead screws, slot screws are just cheap to make. They're just not very good. They can look nice. This is, yep, that's Allen. Oh, I got a set here. Too small. Oh boy. See, this is the reason why you want to buy good quality stuff, because you don't run into these issues the better quality stuff you buy. These are just a little off sizing. Alright, we're going to loosen these rings up a little bit so they slide around, because we got to set the distance from your eye right.
Yeah.
This is a fixed power scope. If we're so we don't have to worry about what power it's set at when he's adjusted for the distance to his eye. Were it a variable scope, you would want to set it at the middle magnification, and then that'll give you the middle of the eye relief range, and then when you shoulder the scope, it'll be good enough high and low. Alright, now these are loose. So go ahead and set it on the bases. You gotta get them in there. You're gonna have to loosen these thumb screws. You're gonna have to Okay, well, I'll loosen those. You gotta get them pretty loose. Alright. And then, you gotta get them to the right distance. It's easier to do this without the scope on it, you know. Here. See these two?
Mm-hmm.
Those go into those slots.
Yeah, I kind of saw.
You kind of saw? Well, you're pretty mechanical. I don't doubt you figured it out pretty quick now. So then we're going to put them there. Put them there. Is it in there? Whoa, we got it in there. Alright, now, this part doesn't matter. And this is why it's a good idea to do this with the scope out. We should have taken the scope out. But I'm stubborn, so I ain't going to do it.
Yeah, that'll take
Alright.
longer.
So, when the rifle kicks, it goes back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to push against the bases. So when you tighten this thing down, it is helpful to have the bases, because there's some play in that groove, that little bar, there's some play. So you want that bar pressed against here, so when the rifle kicks, it doesn't move. So we're going to press against there. You gonna do it? Maybe you should stand up. The good thing about this with 22 is a good way for you to learn, because 22 cartridges are a nickel a piece, and you know, if you do it wrong, you've learned. The 22 rifle is a great teaching tool. You will learn a lot.
Yeah.
Figuring all this stuff out with
22 rifle is like the first gun you start with.
Yep. Alright, now we need a screw bit that fits these big old thumb screws. And these are cheap pot metal. We do not want to tighten them down too much. So, let's do them as much as we would do a much wicker screw.
I might have to go around the back because I can't really see what I'm doing.
Well, I don't know how you're going to do that. How you going to do it? Tighten one. And then the other till they're about close. Like you putting lug nuts on the car. Now you go around the car. You don't know that, but you go around the car when you put the tire on. Tighten each one a little bit to get them all the same size. Now, see, that's not a whole lot.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Now, the issue is this has got to be set to the correct length for your eye. Okay. And so we're going to do that now. We're going to pause the video and then do that. Alright, so we've got the length set. So Rex has the full picture. Scope's all the way back. It's probably still a hair too long. The stop's probably a hair too long for him. Scope's all the way back. Now, we'll just go over it. Oh, neat, that can stay up. Okay, so the next thing to do is tighten the rings down. Now, when we get technical on them, try to hang with me. Alright? When you tighten the rings down, you want the reticle to look square to the rifle so that when you're shooting, the bullet is under the scope. So when the bullet comes out, it's actually the barrel's going to be pointed up a little bit. And it's going to come up and down in line with the crosshair. Okay? Now, if you don't get it right and your reticle is crooked, what's going to happen is you're going to set it straight up and down with your eye for the most part. But now your barrel's going to be over here. And then when you sight it in, you're going to have the scope and the barrel crooked to each other, and it's going to do this. So near and far, you're going to be left and right if your reticle is not plumb to the bore.
I don't know what that is.
I hear you. Well, this might help somebody else out. I'm going to throw another monkey wrench into monkey wrenches. This is a whole barrel full of monkey wrenches. There's another monkey wrench. That reticle is not square in that scope. Probably not. It may look square to the scope, but then the erectors are going to be set a little bit crooked. And then if you set the reticle square, then it's going to be traveling like this. Okay? Pretty ridiculous. To really set this thing straight, we'd have to mount it, go out, shoot it, crank it up, and see if that was on vertical or not. I ain't got time to like all that. This is a squirrel rifle. You don't shoot them all at 35 yards. So we're not going to worry about whether or not the erectors in a, what was it, like a 60? I don't remember how much it was. It wasn't a terribly expensive gun. It was pretty cheap. So they're probably not going to be right. So, there are two ways to do this good enough for shooting squirrels. One, you can eyeball it, which ain't technical enough for me. I got to have an extra monkey wrench. Or you can use a plumb bob. This is what you set the vertical crosshair on the scope to. You line it up to the plumb bob, and that will be vertical. Okay, so that gets your scope to the vertical. How do we get the rifle to the vertical? In modern machining, everything runs on the XYZ. Somewhere on your gun, there will be a surface that was cut to the x-axis. It was done very precisely. The barrel and everything was mounted related back to that cut. On this gun, the bottom of the bolt is flat, and it matches this cut here on the ejection port. There are other cuts in there. There are tools made to get to those cuts if you do this sort of thing for a living, but we don't. So we're just going to use this to set the gun level. How are we going to do that? Well, how are we going to do that?
I don't know.
We got a little level, little bubble level here. On the bigger gun, you might be able to use your standard carpentry level. I've got this little bubble level here I yanked out of a bow sight. Before you use it, you got to check, make sure it's level. How do you make sure it's level? You set it on level surface, and then you twist it 90 degrees. If it stays in the middle.
That means it's leveled.
How'd you know that? You just figured it out on the fly. Alright, so we're going to set this little level on this flat spot. Are you participating in this? Because, I'm trying to let you do it some. Okay, and then we're just going to twist the gun until that bubble's in the middle. I can't half see this thing. Can you see it? That's because the glue's in the way. That's the part that was glued to both sides. Okay, and we're just going to twist the old gun now until that gets in the middle. Can you see?
I can see.
Are you looking through the scope or are you looking at the level? Right here.
I'm looking for the scope. Wait, it's not level.
Look at the bubble. Are you looking at the bubble? You ain't looking at the bubble.
The bubble is not in the middle.
No,
It's more to the right.
you are correct, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to move to me. Okay. Some people would just stick a level up here, but like I said, you can't count on this being level to the scope. They will have things that stick in the bore, and you just set level. But the way the gun was made goes back to these cuts that were made on the mill. And that one is the one that this gun would have been set to. The raceways, the ejection port, those should all be about the same. Alright. So we did that. Yep, the gun's level. Now the gun's level, we got to set the crosshair level. We'll do that with the plumb bob. We're going to set this down the house. And then we're going to rotate the scope until the vertical crosshair matches up with that hanging line. Which will be vertical because, gravity. I think this was for trot line material. And then this was for catfishing. Just stuff you got. Alright, so we got to set that up and then we'll come back.
Yep. So, to make sure your scope is tightened, and when you tighten it, sometimes it will move. So, the way you want to do it so it stays in place is you tighten it here, 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 crisscross. So, make sure your scope is lined up straight.
If you're not using a torque wrench, because these are kind of funny size screws, a standard size torque bits don't fit, I'd use this. And this has a built-in torque wrench, so to speak, because if you're tightening and this starts flexing, that's about all they're going to stand. You can get down and crank it harder, and you will tighten the screw more, but then you approach the point where you're stripping the threads, and then your connection is not as strong anymore. So tighten up is better than too tight. sure these screws don't back out, put a drop of blue thread locker on the head of each one and let it dry. Or you can put it on ahead of time and let it dry on the thread and then put it on. I got a feeling we're going to be fiddling with this some, so we're not going to do that on the rings. I think maybe we're going to be fiddling with this in the future some. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Rex took this whole thing apart. Yeah. That's why we stored the rifle separate from the bolt in the safe. Yeah. Okay. So let's recap how we got the crosshair version. We put a level on a flat surface that was milled into the action. You want me to draw this?
Well, we have to kind of demonstrate how it works.
All right. So we did that. That got the rifle level. And then we pointed it at a plumb line on the wall. I hung it off the thermostat over there. So this we know is vertical because gravity is pulling it down. So that's absolute vertical. And then we have the crosshair on the scope that we set parallel. Well, that's a little recap on our math lesson there.
I don't like math that much.
Oh, I thought math was your favorite. Anyway, I'm his math teacher, so we get, when you spend more time working on stuff, you have practical application of your math stuff, and then you see why it was important.
History is actually my favorite.
Yeah. All right. So if the vertical up and down on your crosshair is parallel to a plumb line, and you make sure the action is horizontal with your little bubble, then it's square. To gravity. And gravity is what affects the flight path of the bullet, so that's what you need to be measured off to. You have something to add here, sir?
And if you have a line here and the other one's like that, then it's not going to work because soon it's just going to end up crossing, and then you don't want that.
Well, I think what he's saying is if this is vertical, your bullet's going to follow vertical. And if this is your crosshair, what's going to happen is the flight path of your bullet is going to cross back and forth, and your windage is going to be off a different distance. Not a huge deal, really. You can just eyeball it because we're going to be shooting squirrels at about 35 yards, and we know that because we shoot a lot of squirrels.
Yeah, and
about
this is
35
just
yards.
This is a squirrel rifle, nothing else.
30 in a trainer.
Yeah.
But 35 yards is about the distance you have to get back off of a treated squirrel to be able to shoot at his head. Okay, so we did all that. Now what's left is to bore sight the rifle. Okay, so we got the scope lined up as far as the reticle being square to the bore of the rifle. And now we need to bore sight it to save ourselves some time at the range.
Yeah.
So the way we're going to bore sight is we're not going to bother buying anything because you don't need anything. You can just find a distant object and line up the bore of the rifle with a distant object. And then you also line up the crosshairs with the same distant object. Now the bore of the rifle and the crosshairs are pointed to the same spot. That's bore sighting. That's what they do when they bore sight a rifle. You can use a collimator and such, which are handy and nice, but you don't have to because you just do that. All you do is point out across the yard and a safe direction. Make sure it's unloaded. It will be because you have to be able to look down the bore of the rifle. And adjust the knobs until the crosshair and the bore are on the same spot. Now, just so you know, if you look at a circular object through the circular bore of the rifle, you're going to be very close to it. The further away the object is, the better off you are. You can wait until you get to the gun range and just stick up a big bright target and do it that way. And it'll get you very close. Close enough to hit a big sheet of paper. So at that point, the thing is mounted and bore sight.
Yep.
Do you think we should put them through the tedium of watching us look down the bore and twist down?
Nah, that's just longer.
Yeah, this video is long enough already.
About 38 minutes.
Is it really?
Yeah, when
Wow.
it quit, it said 35.
We're never going to get this thing up. Alright, so that's how you do it. It doesn't take any special tools. I mean, everybody's got this stuff. This came with the scope. They usually send you that stuff. This came with a different scope. This came with a different scope. And this is not necessary.
Yeah.
A string and a fishing weight will be your plumb bob. A distant object will bore sight you. You can use the flexing of your wrenches that they send you to estimate the proper amount of torque. And kind of hard to do without one of these. That is one thing. But you can do that with sandbags. You just sandbag it down real tough and real steady, and it'll be good enough. And that's about all you got to do. Now, do you remember any of this?
Well, the video took so long, so at the beginning I kind of forgot what we were doing, but we got the scope on.
You can watch the video.
Yeah.
You can watch the video first. Then you know how to do this stuff. I think you can do it.
Yeah,
I think you can do it.
So like when I get older and I don't know how to mount a scope to my gun, watch the video.
Well, I mean, we do it together, but I mean, you kind of remember how to do it. Do you think if you watch this video, could you mount the scope?
I think I could.
How old are you?
9.
9-year-old, I believe he's right. I think Rex could have done this on his own. He would not have done it well, but he could have done it. And by having this resource available, I think it would keep him straight enough to get the scope mounted. I really do. And so that was the point of this video. Is there anything else you want to do so we can make this video even longer?
No.
No.
No long videos.
No long videos. This is a long video.
Yeah.
I gotta cut all this stuff off.
Yeah.
The way you want.
Bye. Happy New Year and see you next time. Bye.